Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. Very good. Yeah. But anyway, that's great, and it's actually fantastic to be back here in Tampere. So it's not like that long ago that I was here, like last time. So yeah, always good. And I think that of course we have very special like circumstances with the COVID-19 and all of that. But good news is that it's like the same for everybody. And actually here in Finland and here in Tampere, we're fortunate that we have been handling the crisis like pretty well so far. So it's not like, you know, America or Brazil or one of these places where there are some bigger challenges. So from that perspective, it's not the same for everybody. But yeah, and also, I mean, now you can't like avoid talking about you know, the crisis and all of that. But I think that we should always remember that always when there is like a crisis, there's opportunity. And I think that that is something that we should always, you know, that there's always like a bright side, always like a silver lining to every crisis. And this is also actually one reason why, like with Ambitious Africa, because of the crisis, we've been able to move like super fast, much faster than we could have otherwise. So it's actually a great example of how you can turn a crisis into opportunity. Then maybe before we go into kind of like Ambitious Africa and all of that, so again, you know, as most Finns, I talk a lot. But anyway, so I'll try to keep up like the Finnish image of like, you know, talking a lot. So I'll start actually with a bit of intro, you know, about myself. So it's important in kind of like the context of Ambitious Africa as well. I started my kind of like you know, working life working for the original startup. So the one that Bill and Dave started in their garage in Palo Alto in California, 1939. So before my time. So I'm like not that old. I wasn't there when Bill and Dave started that company. So it was Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. And they started their company in that famous garage in Palo Alto in 1939. So that was like a long time ago. And I think that this is always good to kind of like remember that these things don't like happen overnight, that, you know, it takes some time. And I was actually fortunate enough, I met with both Bill and Dave when they were still alive, and they were fantastic entrepreneurs. So they started HP, fantastic company. Actually, Harry was working there also back in the day, a bit after 1939, but that's where we kind of like first met, but we'll get back to that. And then they started HP, but actually that was the birthplace of Silicon Valley. That's actually the first historical like landmark of Silicon Valley. And this is why we have to suffer all these garage stories and the company that got started in the garage and yada, yada, yada. That's like the whole like Silicon Valley like lore. So I think that that's always good to keep in mind, that it didn't happen yesterday, and Silicon Valley wasn't started by, you know, Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, you know, one of these newcomers, but it was actually started much earlier. Then, yeah, so basically also when I was working there, started something called the HP Bazaar all the way back in 1999, long time ago as well. And then in 2003 organized a game making competition, and that was when, you know, our friends at Nokia were still making phones. And they had come out with their like first smartphone, so long before like iPhone and Android and all of this stuff happened. And we already had a discussion here that also the first Tampere like based games company got started that fantastic year 2003, because this game making competition that I organized in 2003, there was also you know, Niklas, Kim and Jarno, three young guys from you know, studying at TKK, or nowadays Aalto University. They took part in the competition. And they won the competition, and then after the competition, they came to me and said, okay, like, what should we do now? And then I said, okay, you should do what you love to do. And it's very clear that you love not only playing games, but making games. So why don't you start a company to do that? And then they started Rovio, and it took a few years. 11th of December 2009, 52nd game came out. So not the first or second, but 52nd game, and that was Angry Birds. And then I spent like 6 years there as the Mighty Eagle, and then yeah, we made that Angry Birds thing like pretty popular, fastest growing consumer brand ever, and like all of that. And yeah, so also example that it wasn't, you know, like an overnight success story. It actually took 6 years, 51 games, and then the 52nd game, and then, you know, like Angry Birds. So these things take a while. Then also 2008 we started Slush with a few friends. Some of you might heard about that. Slush is now the biggest and best startup event on the planet, and it's of course much more than just an event. And why did we start Slush? We didn't start Slush to make a fantastic event happen. We started Slush because we needed to change the mindset and the attitude around entrepreneurship here in Finland and the region. In 2007, I went to Aalto University. I gave a talk to 600 students. And then I asked the students that, hey, like, how many of you have thought about starting a company or joining a startup? Out of 600 students in 2007, so not that long ago, 3 raised their hand. And out of those 3 students raising their hand, 2 were foreign students, which is pretty obvious because if you're a foreigner here in Finland, even now, what else can you do? You know, nobody's hiring you, so you have to start a company. Okay, and this is something that we have to fix. I mean, it's really like still pretty bad, but that's like how it works. So it just shows that Finland is not like, you know, we can't be happy with like the current situation even now, but I mean, it was still, it was like that back then as well. Anyway, so then that's why we had to start Slush, to change that mindset, change that attitude. So then we started Slush together with a few friends in 2008. First Slush, 300 people showed up, and then we had Risto Siilasmaa, we had Ilkka Paananen, Montti Videnius started MySQL, we had Sampo Karjalainen, we had Ilja Laus who started a company called GetJar in Vilnius, Lithuania. So we had all these guys sharing their experiences and basically telling the young people and also like not so young people why it's cool to be an entrepreneur, why you should start a company. And it was a fantastic event. And then at the first Slush I told everybody that, hey, we're going to make this the biggest and best startup event on the planet. And I got the same reaction as I did when I told everybody at Rovio that we're going to have 100 million downloads for Angry Birds. Peter, you're crazy. You know, like, what about the Silicon Valley? You know, how do you think that we could, you know, like compete with those guys? And that's why I shared the story about starting my, you know, working life at HP. So I've been to Silicon Valley more times than I can count. And, you know, it's one of the few places where I don't need a navigator to get around. So I, you know my way around there. And yeah, and actually then with Slush, of course, we did what we set out to do. We made it the biggest and best startup event on the planet. Last year, you know, pre-crisis like times, we had over 20,000 people, 160 countries represented there. And then you might ask, okay, so if you look at Slush and why we won, so actually it starts with the brand. Cold, dark, slush on the ground, very clear from the first second that you land in Helsinki that it's not. And I get a new microphone, and now you can hear me better again. So everybody else was, you know, busy running around that, hey, we're going to make Tokyo the Silicon Valley of Asia. We're going to make Beijing the Silicon Valley of China. We're going to make Tampere the Silicon Valley of smart traffic, or whatever happens to be like the popular like buzzword. Everybody wants to be Silicon Valley of this, Silicon Valley of that. So if you want to win, you don't do what everybody else is doing. You actually do something different and better. So that's kind of like how we won with Slush. Why is it different? Okay, one thing is that it's all built by young people. So we had last year 2,600 volunteers from more than 60 countries. They make Slush happen. That's the key thing. There is like unlimited, you know, like passion and energy and drive there. And that's, you know, why you can't lose. Of course you win when you do something like that. So now back to Ambitious Africa. A couple of years ago, I mean, then what came out of Slush and all of that, actually one thing, 5 years after starting Slush, I went back to Aalto University, same talk about entrepreneurship, and then I asked the same question, and guess what? More than half the hands went up. So we did this massive cultural revolution in Finland in like 5 years. massive transformation, and it's still ongoing. So we are still not there, but I mean it's like much better situation. And of course, it wasn't just about Slush. After first Slush, we realized that we need more teams, we need more startups. So then, 2009, Aalto.ES got going. Then we actually started something called Stream here in Tampere. You might remember that. It then became like Tampere.ES, and now we have Stream living on in the form of the event, and you have Tribe and all of that stuff. Boost in Turku got started then, and so on and so on. All these entrepreneurship societies. Then Startup Sauna got started. Actually, I have to share a Startup Sauna story with you because it's kind of like also related to this Ambitious Africa thing. So Kristo Ovaska, founder of Smartly nowadays, but he was, first chair of like Aalto.ES, and then during that time they started something called the Aalto Venture Garage that you probably never have heard of, but you might have seen that sign at Startup Sauna. But anyway, so then I had a meeting with Kristo and the guys at Johto Cafe. That was, like a gathering place for startups back in the day, 5th floor on this like Kamppi center in Helsinki. And then I asked Kristo and the guys that, hey guys, what will happen when you have, let's say TechCrunch or VentureBeat or, Financial Times or, like Foreign Media come to Finland, and then you tell them that, oh, we have this student-run accelerator here in Finland called Aalto Venture Garage. What will happen? And then I answered my own question and said, nothing. They've heard millions, maybe billions of these garage stories. So, I mean, nobody cares about garages. That's like super boring, like Silicon Valley. So, let's not do that. Let's call it the Startup Sauna. And then you all know what happened. You can't even get through like the pitch that, hey, in Finland we have this like student-run accelerator called the Startup Sauna, and then the journalists immediately interrupt you. What? Are you pitching naked in there or what? Can we see it? And then they all came there, took their pictures, and yeah, not always pitching naked, but it kind of like helps, the thing. Actually, related to this, I was actually telling Tommy here earlier today that you now have this Platform 6. Super boring brand. I think I've heard about so many platforms and all of that, and I understand the story and all this, but I said that you should use the Swedish version when you promote it. Then people will like take note. So Platform 6 in Swedish, you just add one T, so platform, and then 6. Then people will like ask you about it. So, that's how you do branding. You have to create a reaction. You have to create some kind of like, question in people's head. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Yeah, anyway. So, so Startup Sauna then actually did some expeditions to Africa. They went to Tanzania, Kenya. They went to Ethiopia a couple of years, and then they worked with the local startups there. And then Richard from Kaufman, so I know him many startups, or since many startups. And he's actually originally from Kenya. So he was actually part of those like Startup Sauna expeditions to Africa. And then we talked with Richard that, hey, we should actually make this bigger. Let's take it to all of Africa. And this was maybe, 5 years ago. And then we pitched this idea that, Finnish Foreign Ministry went there and said that, hey, you only have embassies in like 12 countries. In Africa, there's 54. So we have like a pretty minimal presence. So why don't we actually go after all of Africa? And then, of course, this idea didn't really like fly. They were like concerned that, oh, this is, like too ambitious. And, we proposed that let's work with young people. And there's like, oh, we typically don't do, you have to be like super formal and all of this stuff. So then we didn't really kind of like get there. Last summer, I was in Pori. Fantastic place, fantastic ice hockey team and everything, as Harry knows. But anyway, so that's my hometown. But anyway, I was in Pori because there's this Suomi Arena, and then, all the important like politicians and business people hang out there. And I think Antti was there as well. But anyway, so just proves my point that all the important people. Then we met with Ville Skinnari. So Ville Skinnari is actually our Minister of like Foreign Trade and Development. But actually, he's not just like a minister and politician. I know Ville from his startup days. So Ville was actually working at a startup in, the .com boom called Matchan.com. And like many of the .coms, didn't go so well. So they went bankrupt. run by a guy called Morten Mikkos. So after they failed with Match.com, what did he do? He went to MySQL, he was running that, and then boom, Sun Microsystem bought it for $1 billion, so it became one of the first unicorns coming out of our part of the world, so not too bad. And again, you know, like a lesson there is that, okay, fail, 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 unicorn, done. So that's how you do it. So that's, you know, like part of entrepreneurship that it takes a few attempts. But anyway, so Ville was actually working there, so he has startup experience and everything. And then I talked to Ville there at Suomi Arena July last year and said that, hey, why don't we make like a bit of a bigger plan for Africa? And then Ville, again, coming from the startup background, said that, yeah, fantastic, let's do that. And then COVID-19 crisis happened, and we've been working now on this Africa thing. So then we had a kickoff for Ambitious Africa. We invited all the ESEs, and I think Tampere.ES was there, and you had Aalto.ES, Hanken.ES, Lutes, Pori.ES, there is such a thing as well. And all of these ESEs were there. And then we say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to transform Africa 5 years. It's going to be very, very different. So again, you know, like people think, you know, you're crazy or insane or something. Okay, of course we can transform Africa in 5 years, because guess what? We have unlimited resources. Unlimited number of passionate, talented young people. So what we did is that we actually started Ambitious Africa. We launched in Rwanda. That was the first country that we did. And now we've launched in 22 countries. We have built local teams, 2 local young people, like in Kenya, we have Jessica and Douglas. And then they're working together with Maija and Mikko. And actually Mikko was too busy with Lutes now, so now it's Maija and Barak. That's the Finnish team. So we have 2+2 local people there in Kenya, in Rwanda. We just launched Zimbabwe and Nigeria. And we now have 22 countries and 32 to go. So then we have 54 countries live and kicking. And the whole idea there is to take the slush approach and the Finnish ecosystem approach to Africa and transform education, entrepreneurship, entertainment. So this triple E model for transformation. And one example of what we're doing there already, we start looking at education. Okay, there's a huge need for transforming the early years education. So we need to train 2.4 million early years teachers across Africa, 50,000 in Cameroon, 50,000 in Mozambique, 20,000 in Rwanda, 20,000 in Tunisia, and so on and so on. We're now live and training teachers in 9 countries. Okay, so we started in like March, so it's like fairly rapid. 9 countries doing that. So FAVE, Federation of African Women Educationalists, together with Fun Academy doing that. And then we're working with several of the universities or the universities of applied sciences here in Finland, and also now some of the universities coming on board. So the plan is that we will train 2.4 million, but of course we can't train all of them here in Finland, but we're going to train 1%, 24,000 here in Finland. And then they go back and train like 100, and then 2.4 million, 5 years, done. So that's what we're doing. And then we also started some student-run incubators. So the Hanken.ES guys did that in Rwanda. So we now have 2 incubators, one in Kigali and one somewhere in the countryside of Rwanda. So never been there, so I don't know. But anyway, they have, and they got this started. And now we're expanding that to Uganda, and then soon we'll have that in 54 countries. So taking this kind of like approach that we did here to transform Africa in 5 years. And then you might ask, why are we doing this? It's because Finland is now in charge of Africa. If you kind of like followed what is happening here in Europe, so Jutta Urpilainen got to be the commissioner from Finland, and she's in charge of Africa. So the way I see it is that we are now, you know, like as Finland in charge of Africa. And when you put Finnish people in charge of something, then we have this sense of duty and obligations. We actually have to do something. So now we're like delivering this transformation in 5 years. And then, you know, when we present this, like in Tanzania, I was talking to Rose, one of my friends there. And then, you know, actually I met with her in Riga at Tech Chill. And then I was presenting this, you know, this was already like in February before we had even done the first event. And I shared this that, okay, we're going to transform Africa, all 54 countries, 5 years. And you could see this like skepticism and like, okay, like, yeah, right, we've heard this before. So then I had to share one of my Jyrki Katainen stories. So Jyrki used to be our prime minister, and 5 years or so ago, he was at this World Economic Forum summer meetup in Dalian in China. And Jyrki was running this roundtable discussion about entrepreneurship. And then you had like important people, Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister of UK, a bunch of business people, a bunch of ministers in the audience. And then somebody asked Jyrki, Prime Minister of Finland, that like, how did you guys in Finland deliver this like amazing explosion in startups and this transformation? Like, how did you guys do it? And then Prime Minister of Finland answers, I don't know. And of course he knew, and we even actually painted his nails at one of the slush events when we had like the musician guys were there promoting like their stuff. So we painted, and this is pretty cool. I don't think that we could do this in many other countries besides Finland, that you paint, the nails of a male prime minister at a startup event. But, in Finland, anything is possible. But anyway, so then Jyrki wanted to make the point that it wasn't him, it wasn't the Finnish government, it was the young people. They made it happen. And when I shared this story, with Rose, and I shared it with many of our other African friends, then they understand, cool, it's about the young people. And that's where, like this unlimited resources, unlimited, ability to do anything, because we have unlimited number of young people here in Finland, in Nordic countries. So we made this a Nordic, project because we need more, more people. So we also have Stockholm and Copenhagen working with us, and we're gonna like go all over the Nordic countries. So connecting Nordic countries and Africa. So that's kind of like what the plan is here. And as the name implies, Ambitious Africa. So ambitious.africa. I love the URL. It's like easy to remember. But anyway, so that's kind of like what Ambitious Africa is all about. And today, I mean, we've been talking about this here in Tampere. So Tampere happens to have also activities already in that part of the world. And we have Edunation. So Harri, that I already mentioned, we met at HP. So bringing students from all over the planet, including Africa, to Tampere and other fine locations around Finland. And then another thing that Harri and the guys have been doing is this Asia exchange. So sending students from the West to do exchange in Asia. And I think right now there's a huge interest to go and do the same in Africa. So when I've talked to kind of like our young people and like students at our universities, there's a big interest to actually go and do an exchange in Africa. Like Asia used to be like this place, actually still is popular, but I think now if you look at Africa, it's the fastest growing continent. 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies, Africa. And I think that this is something that we need to kind of like also bring that message back to Finland, to Nordic countries, to Europe, that it's not some kind of charity case. Africa is actually growing fast. There's lots of talent, and we can do anything when we work together. So I think this is something that is super, super important. So we need to kind of like remove this stereotypical view of Africa of like starving children and families in poor villages. I mean, of course, there's also that reality, but that's not like the only reality. There's also, there's growth, there's entrepreneurs, there's cities, there's like amazing development, and we need to be part of it. And when we work together, of course, we can transform Africa in, 5 years. And what we have been doing actually so far, I mean, we launched in Rwanda. Then we had the great support from Ville Skinnari. So, he's been participating online in about half of our events. And when he wasn't like live, then we had this video that we could share. But because we have a minister from Finland, then we also have always a minister from like the country where we're going. So we had like the education minister of Ethiopia with us for an hour discussing, like the fact that he's a huge fan of Finnish education and they would love to work with us and transform the educational system. We had the innovation or IT minister of Rwanda. We had the foreign minister of Zimbabwe. So this some kind of general, colonel, military guy, but it was like very impressive video that he put together for us. But the cool thing here, it's not about the governments, because we now have this kind of reach, so we can get to the government ministers. And the way I always position this is that it's our job to keep, the governments and the older people out of the way, while the young people change the world. And this is also something that resonates very nicely in Africa, because it's very hierarchical. It's kind of like Japan and many places in Asia, that if you don't have like gray hair, you can't be trusted. It's very important that we can like remove these obstacles, and we actually set these, young people free, and then they go there and they like fix the problems. We start by removing corruption. When I said that we're going to do that, they started laughing in Zimbabwe. And then I said, no, I'm serious. We're going to work with the Tax Finland guys. We have the best people, for that. We actually had some of them on loan to Greece when they had some problems with this. So, of course, we haven't still completely removed corruption, but, we have to at least attempt to do that. So bringing good Nordic values to Africa. But again, we also have the benefit that we are not British or French or Belgian. So we don't have this kind of not so great track record in Africa. So we're at least somewhat, okay, even though we're white, but it's still fine. So I think that that's something that, Finnish people are let's say that we typically say what we think, and we don't always think about what we say. So it's a good characteristic to have, to kind of look at things the way they are, not always totally diplomatic. So that's kind of okay. But yeah, so a lot of opportunity, and we're kind of off to a great start, I would say, but there's still a lot to do, and 5 years goes quickly, so we need to kind of run, and we need a lot of people to join and kind of work on this together, and there's plenty of opportunity. And as I said, it's not like a charity. There's also a lot of business opportunity. So I think that this is something that we need to keep in mind. And then Harri, we also brought some ambitious Africa badges. So we could hand those out. So we, of course, all about branding. So /startup sauna ambitious.africa. So ambitious Africa is also very, very ambitious. And that's again you need to have a good brand to rally around, and then you can do the distributed thing, and then before you know it, Africa will look very different. And then we always get this question, because we have this history that okay, you need to kind of do this aid and stuff for Africa. So get the question that who will pay for it? And I say you guys will pay for it, meaning the local people there, the government, the private companies. Yeah, so we have this ambitious Africa for your in Finnish it's haalari-merkki. So it's a badge that you can put on your university overall. But it's also a fashion statement, so it works great on you've all seen the jeans and stuff nowadays from Hilfiger and all these guys. So you can also do that. But yeah, you probably already realize that it's all about branding. And one thing that I should mention, because I know that all of you are dying to ask the question that what is this F-Liiga thing? So this is actually the leading floorball league on the planet. It's a Finnish floorball league, now rebranded F-Liiga. And it's great to be here in Tampere because you have what is probably the best team in the best league on the planet. And we are taking this also to Africa. So there are more licensed floorball players now in Kenya than all of France. Of course, France is not a huge barrier, but that's something that we're also working on, and we're going to make floorball the biggest sport on the planet. So that's why I'm wearing this F-Liiga thing to honor Classic here in Tampere, which is probably the best team in the best league. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Just wanted to ask, did you realize that this is also a new AA club?
Yeah, of course. It's of course. It's there's no coincidence. So ambitious Africa works that way. But yeah, anyway. We have these for I hope we have enough for everybody, but you should grab one, and I'll put this one here, so then go ahead. Okay, very cool. Yeah. But anyway, so I don't know, what's the plan to take some questions, or how are we running this? Okay, cool. So yeah. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you. Peter, my question is about how is that first moment that you interact with African entrepreneurs? How is the system that you use to get the talent? How do you interact with them?
Yeah, I would say that it's very similar to how I interact with all of you here, and we have had because this is actually one thing that I think that if you look at entrepreneurs and you look at the startup ecosystems, and you can go anywhere, and it's more of let's say more similarities than differences if you look at the and I think that this is again because of the internet and stuff, that it's a very, very global world, and I think startup people, entrepreneurs are very similar everywhere, And the way we can like always talk about this, I mean, we talk about education, so that's like the foundation for everything, and you know, Finland, great example of that. But then entrepreneurship, and the way I present this is entrepreneurship is all about, you know, getting stuff done. Entrepreneurs are people who do stuff. So that's, you know, as simple as that. And I think that this is something that resonates, you know, like everywhere, including everywhere in Africa, even in Eritrea, which is not like the easiest place to do stuff. So it's like the North Korea of Africa. So it's, you know, like a bit challenge if you don't have like access to the internet and stuff, you know, then, you know, it's a bit of a challenge in many businesses. But yeah, I think that the message resonates like really, really well. And we found really fantastic community of, again, entrepreneurs and people who actually want to challenge the status quo. And I think that this is also, you know, it's not that startups are somehow, you know, have the exclusive rights to the monopoly on like entrepreneurship. I think we need entrepreneurs, you know, people who do stuff everywhere, big companies, government, like everywhere. And yeah, I think that that the message that we've had resonates, and also the fact that we are not, you know, like, okay, come there and hey, this is how you need to do it, but actually then doing this together. So we're like co-creating all of this stuff. So bringing, you know, Nordic people together with like African entrepreneurs. And I think that that's something that, again, only way to do it. And I think that, again, yeah, it's so far so good. And I'm sure we're going to run into kind of like lots of problems and challenges. But, you know, that's what, you know, again, entrepreneurs, startup people, we're used to that, you know, like there's these challenges every day, and then you just like deal with it. So it's pretty good. Yep. More questions? Yeah, so let's start there and then there. Okay, you can, okay. Okay.
So you talked about Nordic values.
Yeah.
Some of the, I would like to know if you have recognized any African values which would align with Nordic values or.
Yeah. So I think that actually African and Nordic values are the same. So I think that we could talk about like in human values as well. So I think that that's, but we had to do like a bit of branding and all of that. So then like Nordic values, but I think that it's actually, I don't see any difference there. And we should always look at the, you know, like, I don't think things like hierarchy or, you know, like that's not like something that anybody massively values anywhere in the world, as an example. But I think that then we need to kind of like bring this kind of right to question everything into kind of like also this, you know, like when we deal with governments and the societies there, that it's perfectly okay to question things, and that doesn't mean that you know, are just like critical, but it's just like, could we do this better? And I think that to me, I mean, like Nordic values, I mean, of course, then you get to, you know, like, okay, human rights, and, you know, like it's, you know, one reason why we need to do this, because obviously we're like the last hope of, you know, the free world and all of that. So it's always great to use this like American kind of like, you know, arguments and like stuff, you know, in this kind of context, because I think that right now, if you look at the world, we're in like, there's a reason why the Nordic countries are always there in like, if not all in the top 5, at least in the top 10 of like happiest nations on the planet and all of that. So I think that we shouldn't be shy about that. Of course, I mean, we are nowhere near perfect, but I mean, we can share and we can compare notes on like what we have done here, and then, you know, what we could do together, you know, in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, in Nigeria, wherever. So I think that it's having kind of like an open mind and then like working together. So I think that and very important, like for example now in Zimbabwe, working with a design school, and what they are doing is like African design. So it's not like taking this like European design and then making an African version of it. I think this is also something that is very important, that it should always be like both ways. And now when we're looking at like education, we want to have student mobility both ways. We want to have many more African students, you know, from Kenya, from Ghana, from everywhere in Finland and in Nordic countries. And we also want to see more of our students going to Africa. Like, why not? And I think that there's a lot of, and also like with the companies that African startups coming here, startups from here going to Africa. And we already starting to see that actually we have used Bolt. So, for out of Estonia, that's the latest and the fourth unicorn in Estonia, latest funding round. Their valuation was at $1.9 billion. Not too bad. But what is really cool about Bolt, half of their business out of Africa. So if Bolt can do that, a fairly recent, development, if you look at like, as far as startups and unicorns concerned, they do half of their business out of Africa. So why couldn't, a startup here in Finland or in Sweden or like anywhere, why couldn't they do the same? So I think that this is again a great example. So we had Martin Willig, who is the co-founder of Bolt. He's been participating in many of our events and sharing kind of like their approach and their experience. And I think that we need this kind of examples. I mean, then of course we have Wärtsilä. They have been in Africa since 1975, and actually the biggest opportunity now for Wärtsilä is Africa, because there's a lot of need for more power and like everything. Of course those guys are there, and the Nokias and the Kones and like all of these corporations, but it's also for the let's say startups and the not so established corporations. There's also opportunity in Africa, and I think this is something that we need to kind of like, again, as I said before, remove this stereotypical view of like starving people in small villages. I mean, that's like how the media portrays like Africa, and a lot of people when start presenting that, hey, you should join us in this ambitious Africa thing, then people are, yeah, but we are already doing our like CSR and blah blah blah, and it's like, hey, no, I mean that it's like an opportunity. So that's but yeah, so short answer is that we can do much better on like incorporating then like African values and mixing like Nordic values and all of that. But in the end, it's like good like human values. Yeah.
If you think about the Finnish startup that wants to launch their business in Africa, what will be the three, let's say, top things to keep in mind?
Top three things to keep in mind. Of course, I would say that it's actually the exact same thing that if you want to launch in the US or you want to launch in China or Vietnam or Uzbekistan or like anywhere, that of course it's not like Finland, it's not like Sweden, it's not like Europe. I mean, all markets are like different. So of course you need to like know what you're doing. It's a little bit like we've had lots of startups that, okay, we're going to go to China. There's like 1.4 billion people, and if only like 1% buy like shoes, then we're going to be like filthy rich. And of course, why would even 1% buy shoes or whatever product you're selling? I mean, it's still, like you have to have something that is competitive, and no matter how big Africa or how big China or whatever, you still have to kind of like have your act together. So I would say that do your homework, and it's not good enough to just like look at the map and, okay, we're going to do Africa. Also, there is no such thing as Africa. There's no such thing as Europe. I mean, there's 54 countries. It's very different to go to South Sudan than to Ghana. Totally different. Or South Africa. I mean, it's very, very different. So I would say that, again, do your homework, go there, talk to the people, talk to the locals, and don't go there only like once, but you have to be prepared to go there like, and ideally you have to be there on the ground. I mean, it's not like, okay, let's go there once a year and we'll figure it out. So know what you're doing. Then I think that the other thing is and maybe you can say then matter of like opinion if which one is like number one or two. Maybe this is not in any particular order, but I would say that it's always about the talent. And then, it's about local. Always, if you go to Africa, any country, if you go to China, any place in China or India or wherever, or to the US, probably the locals know the market better than you do. So that's, again, local talent, super important. But then local talent working with kind of like your local team, for example, here in Finland. So then that's like the combination that you want to have. And and then I think that also, like I used the Silicon Valley example, 1939, Rovio 2003, and then a few years, Angry Birds. I think that also that you have to have the stamina to stay. That it's not going to be that, okay, we go to Kenya and we're going to be super successful in 2 weeks. Probably you will need to be a bit more patient. So I think that that is something that, again, you have to kind of like stay the course and then believe that eventually you will be successful. So maybe that local, talent, and don't expect to be successful tomorrow.
We're talking about this project. You have like a 5-year estimate and plan. You can expand the whole project to basically the whole Africa in 5 years, and I believe you can copy systems and tools and events from country to country. But do you have like a even longer point of view to the future, and how do you approach like a 50-year plan? Because culture takes longer than 5 years to develop and take place. And, and like transition has to be bit more sustainable than only 5 years.
Sure, but of course, I mean, it's not limited to 5 years. Okay, we do 5 years, then we stop.
How do you approach the longer period?
But this is But I think that okay, I mean, probably there's value in like 5-year plans and all of that stuff. That's like you can open for debate. But I think that key thing here is that we don't know. So everything, if you look at Ambitious Africa, and I would say that the same is true for Slush and like how startups do stuff in general, that it's about learning by doing. So again, we don't know about like all the things that will be needed. So that's again working with the local teams. They know. I mean, talked about Kenya here, but then we were talking to Douglas, and he's working like operator and also like in the games industry, and Jessica is in the kind of like talent space with like HR and stuff like that. But we talked, and okay, biggest challenge, talent. Okay, what could we like do in that? Okay, then we can work with the local universities. That's one thing, and that always takes some time. Okay, can we speed up, like if you take the games area, can we speed up this? And of course we can. We can connect you with, like the best gaming ecosystem on the planet. That happens to be here. So we can do that kind of stuff. But we didn't know that would be one of the things that we would start working on as part of Ambitious Africa, that we're doing, game jams, and we're doing a lot around games, of course, like games background, so it kind of like comes with the territory that we know some people in that space. But still, it's not like carefully planned that, okay, in 5 years we'll have, 10,000 games companies in Africa. So we didn't like set out with that. But we started looking at like this high level kind of like education, entrepreneurship, entertainment. So looking at like that and what we can do around that, what we can bring to the table. And then the idea is really that, okay, we will learn by doing, and we don't know what it will look like in 5 years, what it will look like in 10 years. But that's also like, always when I say, okay, we're going to transform Africa in 5 years, then, okay, what will it look like? And I say, I don't know. Nobody knows. And it's again, I think that it's a little bit when you're doing a startup or building like an ecosystem and all of that, that it's a little bit like a jungle or like a reef, that it's unpredictable. It's not like, okay, we're going to grow these potted plants in our homes, which is like fairly predictable, that if you plant something in that pot, probably then, like you can, what will come out of there. But in a jungle, you don't know. And I think that this is also a little bit like the thinking here that of course it's unpredictable and it's a bit random, but we have like some kind of general direction, and it's more about like how we are doing it. So I have like unlimited trust in like the young people doing the right thing. And we attract kind of like the doers, the entrepreneurs, the people who want to have change happen and who are actually interested in like making things better. I mean, if you ask any entrepreneur, what do you want to do? I want to change the world. So now we're just like changing Africa, which is like a subset. So it should be like pretty easy.
If you don't mind, we go with the last question, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, Peter, for an excellent and inspiring presentation. And 2 questions.
Mhm.
So you have had business and activities all over the world. What is best in Africa compared to Finland when talking about young entrepreneurs? And as a conclusion, question number 2, why we young people should be interested in Africa?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think all of us young people should be very interested in Africa. So I think that's a good start. But also actually this is a kind of like maybe a third question there, or like just and of course I would say that it's not about age, but I actually think that we have many young people who are also like very conservative and like not so interested in kind of like changing the world. So it's not about age always; it's about attitude, and I think that it's about attitude and ambition. So this is something that it's very important. That I mean, there's no excuse for young or older people not to do stuff. So I think that's like very important as a starting point. But anyway, then what I think that is exciting about Africa, and I think that the same is true for any nation, any area where you have young population. So I think this is the biggest difference between, like take Finland, take Nordic countries, and take Africa, young population. I mean, we don't have a particular young population here in Finland, and then with age, typically then comes this that, okay, we're pretty happy with, happiest nation on the planet, so, let's not, rock the boat and let's not change things because things are pretty good. And I think that this is something that it's a big challenge for us here in Finland, that people are maybe a bit too happy with the status quo, and there's not that hunger. And I think that if you look at these up and coming emerging economies, and you look at Africa, they are not happy with the status quo. They want to do better. And I mean, if you look at, like Asia, we have seen the same thing, with China, what is happening now all over Asia. And I would say that maybe if I compare China and Africa, it's, 20 years ago, then, most Finnish people would tell you that, China, they will never be able to afford all of our like super expensive, super nice products. And okay, now it's the biggest market for luxury and biggest market for pretty much like everything. So I think the same thing now if you look at Africa, that okay, you have this stereotypical view again that, oh, like they can't afford, like all of these fantastic things that we're doing here, so like why should we care? But hey, fast forward 20 years and it's going to be like amazing, and you can already see that in the growth. Always when you have growth, there's opportunity. So I think that's the biggest difference, is this hunger, and through that hunger you have like people who are actually doing things. And always when you have growth and you have like this kind of activity, it's great to be part of it. So that's why we should be there. And did I answer also what was the second question? Why? Yeah, but I think I pretty much like answered that. So we should be, and I think that also, I mean, if you look at now, Finland, and we look at Tampere, we are not like the biggest like nation or all of that. So of course we always have to look outside. If you are doing a startup here, everybody understands that most cases being number one in Finland is probably like it's like a good start, but it's not enough. So we need to look outside, and I think that that's again, we should look at Africa, but we shouldn't forget about like rest of the world. There's lots of opportunity in Asia, there's lots of opportunity like in the Americas and all of that as well. So it's not like one of these like either or, but it's like and. And I'm not saying that, okay, let's all go to Africa, but I mean, there are many companies that have fantastic solutions that would be very applicable. And I mean, the Bolt example, that half of their business is coming out of Africa, 1.9 billion valuation for like a startup out of Estonia, not too bad. So we could have a few of those here in Finland as well. I don't see like any reason why not. But yeah, I'll stop here because, yeah. Okay.
So, Peter, we are in Finland, which is the happiest country in the world, and in many rankings we are the best, and we are also very humble and modest. But Tampere is also the most desired city in Finland. So, but are you seeing enough hunger and ambition here in Tampere? What should we do better, more to utilize, maybe to have more international Tampere and more students, more startups?
Yeah, so I think that so we met with Mayor Lyly in the morning, and actually I think we met about 2 years ago as well. and we had exact same discussion about like more international students and all of that. And in the meanwhile, what has happened? Okay, you have the new tram system almost up and running. So there's been some development, and you can actually see that when you walk around Tampere, that okay, it's almost here. Okay, what has happened on like in the area of like more international students? Nothing. Okay, maybe something, but like not too much. And actually, I think that it's a very good point that Tampere is like a fantastic place. I mean, it is for good reason. People want to live here, so like that's already like a good start. But then, and actually, one thing that I've been using as an example. So if you look at this fantastic place, Ylivieska, have you heard about it? So Ylivieska and Kokkola and Pietarsaari, they have this University of Sciences there called Centria. 23% of their students are international students. And I, of course, realized that Ylivieska has like fantastic, like gravity, and people really want to go to Ylivieska from all over the world. But it would be fantastic if Tampere could be as good as Ylivieska. Could be as good as Centria. That would mean that 25% of the students here would be international students. So I think that would be like fantastic ambition. That would mean that we would have 10,000 foreign students, international students here in Tampere. I think that it's a very low number. We should have 20,000. But I mean, we need to start somewhere. So if Tampere could be as good as Ylivieska, that would be like something. And then if you look at Ylivieska, nothing bad about Ylivieska. But if I asked a random person in Finland if they want to move to Tampere or Ylivieska, I think that Tampere might get, a few votes. Maybe might not lose like totally. So just main point here that I mean, why don't we have 25% international students here? And I think it's a very good question. And I think that because we haven't made it so. But again, nobody else can make it so except, you guys here in Tampere. It's not something that, okay, we're going to make it happen. It's a little bit like me going to Africa saying that I'm going to take care of all of your problems. And yeah, right. I mean, it's the local people have to do that. So the same thing needs to be happening here in Tampere. And it's not enough that the university or the city or, us here, it's all of us together. And that's what is kind of like missing in actually most places in Finland. There is a reason why Centria has been so successful. And that's because Hannele Teir and like fantastic team at Centria, they decided to make it happen. So it was the people. And I think that we need the people here in Tampere will say that, okay, hey, we're going to be better than Ylivieska. We're going to have 30% foreign students or whatever we like set as the goal. But if we don't have any goals, if we don't know where we're going, guess what? We're not going to get there. It's like very clear. And this is something that keeps amazing me, that why don't we have more ambitious goals, so that we would know where we want to go. I mean, in a startup, if you don't have goals, in a company, if you have don't goals, you fail. Then you're going to be like the next Match.com that I mentioned, that Ville was working there and it didn't go anywhere. Okay, I don't know if it was because lack of goals or something. They were actually doing this service for football, so probably like goals was one of the things that they did. But yeah, anyway, so I think that that's one thing that I think that it would be very, very important that we would actually start working on that. And we have, I mean, I see many people here that probably got here because they were like students coming to study in Tampere, and then for some reason you stayed here, so it can't be like totally bad. But how can we make that, happen at bigger scale? Why don't we share this like Tampere secret with the rest of the world? And then we'll have, not 10,000, but like tens of thousands of foreign students here. And then guess what? They will start companies and they will create opportunities for like all of us. And then we get like growth, and then there will be even more happiness and well-being. So I think that it's like pretty simple model. So we should have like many more students, and why not like many more students from all over Africa? I don't see any reason like why not. So excellent question, and I think that was like very, very good like last question. And I'll be around for like rest of the evening and night. So just come grab me and ask more questions if there's something they want to ask. But yeah, thank you very much.